This is my website, neorafael.com. So, oh yeah, there's the room. Uh, I wanted to encourage everybody to browse on their phone while I'm doing this lecture. And I'm not going to tell you what to browse, but just Google me, look online, go to neorafael.com, and all my work is there. But I was thinking for a while about the structure of a Zoom lecture and not being here with you and what that means. And this Zoom life that we lived and this experiment in the lockdown. And so what you're seeing on the video is a project called 81 Horizons. There are 81 different color combinations of color in the top and color at the bottom. You can find it on my website as well. And it's a completely digital project in the sense that it's encoded on the blockchain. It's owned by multiple people all over the planet, and these people each own one color combination and these different horizons. It's the simplest way I could show a landscape in digital form. So it's very small in file size. It's very humble, and it's something that came out of the lockdown of making drawings. And in the video that you see in Museum Folkwang, we were thinking about how do we exhibit the blockchain? How do we show something that is spread out across the world but lives in a public database? And what is the best way? Do you show one work? Do you show it in its totality? And we decided to show the entire work, and the experience in the exhibition is the same experience as on the phone, but instead of your finger or your mouse going through a collection, it's your body going through a collection. And the interesting thing right now with this lecture is that Zoom is okay sending webcam signals because my body is in one place. And that means that there's not that much movement. It's just mostly my mouth talking, maybe my hands. And so video can send that through the network okay. But the video that you are seeing now locally is a camera going through the space of the museum. And that is something that I've done a couple of Zoom lectures, and whenever you share video, it's problematic. So if I would send this video right now streaming through the network, and that is the core of my work. That basically nothing changed I started working in 1999, and it's still the same thing. If you want something to work through the network, you have to go really small. And every now and then there's a reset of the network, whether it's video conferencing or the blockchain, where again, there's a problem with full video. So my whole life I've been making very compressed images, but not compressed by an algorithm that is made for compression, which right now you're seeing my face, it's compressed. It's a reduced form of me. My voice is compressed. This video is compressed. I'm seeing you in a compressed manner. If you see 81 Horizons, that is as uncompressed as it can be in a small of a. So I'm exploring abstraction as a tool of compression. So the exhibition that you see at Museum Folkwang, it's a space of 1,400 square meters, 81 screens, but the entire project is 9.4 kilobytes. And that's all the data of the owners, that's the files, the metadata, the title, all these things, the entire code of the project. And each frame, as I'm now talking to you, every second is multitudes, thousands, 10,000 times bigger than this entire project. And so I started in 1999 just with this simple question that I was animating video, and I was asking my teachers, how do I put this online? And they're like, well, the connection is slow, so you could use this codec or that codec, you can compress it this way, and it would be a reduced form of reality. And so, but this exhibition that you are now also seeing in a compressed way, you could walk over to Museum Folkwang and see it completely uncompressed, or you can go on your phone and search 81 Horizons on OpenSea or somewhere else, and that will also be uncompressed. So I'm very interested in making work that is completely uncompressed and unfiltered and real, because we're looking at the digital thing. So when you go on your phone and you see the SVG project, you see it on my website or on OpenSea or wherever, just Google it, you'll find it. That's the uncompressed version. Or you can walk over to Museum Folkwang right now or tomorrow and you see the uncompressed version. Or the book exists in a book, the project exists in a book form. I'll show it here. So this is not a sales message, but it's just like the entire project is contained in this book. So the code of the book, the code of the project is the first 2 pages of the book. Because the code is so small, it's just 2 pages. So that's the smart contract that describes the project. And then here we have 81 horizons with their color codes. So this all comes from instruction-based thinking and instruction art and art as algorithms and reducing the algorithm to the simplest instruction. So you could almost read this project as a verbal description. You could say there's a landscape. It is shown as a rectangle that is 5:6 aspect ratio. About 72% of the top is blue. About the rest of the space is a bluish green. Next one, that's horizon 1. Horizon 2, same color blue sky, slightly lighter, more apple green. Horizon 3, and on and on and on. You could describe this project. When we describe code as an idea verbally, that's called pseudocode. That's kind of how I always work, because I'm not a coder, so I work with coders and I describe things and they have to convert that either to blockchain code or browser code or any kind of code. And so the interesting thing is that we all rely on the browser and code and machines as a window and as a portal. So I'm teleporting into the room with you now, and I'm relying on Zoom and on Apple and on the lens and all these algorithms to translate my being into your space. And when I make code-specific projects, I rely on a coder to translate my idea, to beam them to you. And it's interesting to me how much control we have over how we get pushed through the funnel. So ultimately, the digital is a funnel, and we're being squeezed through this funnel. And how much of that is in your control? How much do you decide on the aesthetics of the compression? And how do you deal with do you create the funnel, or do you use the Zoom funnel, or do you use the YouTube funnel or the Instagram funnel, or is it your own funnel? But you need some way to fit your being. And that to me is a metaphor for what art is, because art has always dealt with funnels. And so you have the funnel of painting or the funnel of sculpture, and some people can fit their personality into a brush and some people cannot. Or some people can fit their personality into a poem and some people cannot. And if you look at art history, there have always been moments of new technologies, and certain people thrive in those technologies and other people don't. And perhaps it started with storytelling around a campfire or poetry around a campfire. It's hard to know if that happened or not. And every so many years, there's a new funnel, and then artists have to manipulate those funnels. And this is a very improvised lecture because I wanted to research the whole problem of remote work and remote being and remote contact, and this very strange setting that I'm in now, that I'm talking to you, I can't hear you, I don't know how many people are in the room. So I just wanted to explore this format of the Zoom lecture, which is a very strange thing, and I hope you can feel the strangeness. I would love to hear questions if that is possible. If anybody has a question, because I don't know if I'm coming across at all. Normally, I can read the room a little bit. I can see if you're smiling or if you're crying, and I have no idea now. So any questions would be very welcome. I don't hear anything.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, hello.
Hey, Rafael, this is Geert Lovink. I'm next speaker.
Yeah.
Hi, hello.
Nice to see you.
Yes, a question. I really like the idea of the funnel. It's a very accurate description of where we are, because people think the funnel gets bigger and bigger, right? And that's not the case. No. It's not the case. No. And there's also a politics of the funnel and a design, and there are owners, people who, also decide how it's going to look like. But I'm very interested in how this relates, let's say, to your, if I may say so, digital Mondrian approach to the funnel, like very elementary, essentialist, kind of going to the core in this case of the digital image. How do these two things relate?
Well, in my experience, my father is an abstract geometric painter and a great admirer of Mondrian and Malevich. And growing up in the Netherlands, the museums have an abundance of Mondrian and Malevich, I think more than any other country. But my father's studio was over there, and the television was over there with Mickey Mouse and Looney Tunes. And I was always drawn to the TV as well. So I feel like I grew up exactly in the middle of those two spaces. And if you look at early animation, it's also a very reduced vocabulary. If you look at Mickey Mouse, he only has 4 fingers because there's an economy of drawing. And if you can save 20% of drawing fingers, that's a big deal. There's a reason that he looks that simple. So the simplicity, the technology demands it, especially in the beginning of the internet. I think every time technology, there's a new paradigm, like maybe now with VR, there's a reduced set of possibilities that every time a simplification or a stylization has a benefit. And I always wanted to make works that would be ready for every new. So the best example I can give is when I started, my screen was 640 by 480 pixels. So I made things that would be scalable, that would be ready for a screen the size of a building, but also a smartwatch. I just want to make works that are very robust. And I think Mondrian, we see that as a huge innovation at the time, but that was basically taking ideas from decorative arts and religious decoration and applying those to contemporary art. But they weren't really new ideas, the reduced vocabulary. So I think if you look at Zen gardens or calligraphy in the Middle East, there are all these, and hieroglyphs, there have always been simplistic reductions of concepts into almost letter forms, that even if you look at the history of letter forms, they were symbols. The capital A used to be upside down and it was the head of an ox or a bull. So humans have always tried to reduce things into pictograms, letters, symbols, and I've always found this path from. And then what I find interesting, what is unique to me, is that for painters, the road to abstraction was a choice of luxury. It was just an option, and it was no necessity. And for me, it was a necessity. So I like this idea that there's abstraction for the reason of efficiency, and this combination of efficiency and so back to your question of who designs the funnels and who allows what bandwidth of each funnel, then you see that Instagram and TikTok also dictate the way creators create things. And so each funnel, the blockchain happens to be even more severe in file limitations than anything before. So that's something that I'm very comfortable with. And that's maybe what I was saying about certain people respond better to other funnels. A painter like Picasso maybe would not be happy with the blockchain and would feel very limited. And if you give me a brush and say, just do whatever you want, I feel too unlimited. And so I'm very happy with this system-based thinking. And that's just my personality. Any other questions? Just a remark for Geert before we go to the next question. I love your title, Sad by Design. And I didn't read the book or the whole novel, only some, but the title is so great. That's all I need.
Another question. Hi.
Hi, yeah.
Hi, Rafael. Hey, another question for you regarding the political aspects of the funnel and also of resolution. This morning we had a really interesting talk talking about the resolution of plans in computer games and the politics, what is represented in high resolution and what is represented in low resolution. I was wondering if what you were describing as the funnel is also...
Well, yeah, so my work is resolution independent. It's line-based, they're diagrams, it's what you call a vector format. So that was a very important thing to me from the beginning, that the funnel, the resolution of the screen is liquid, it's always changing. And I wanted to make works that anticipate changes. And for me, a very fundamental difference of digital work and especially code-based work. So not video is fixed in resolution, but if you think of code-based work and my visual language, it anticipates change. So I make work, traditionally we think of a painting when it's finished, it has its full vitality and then it deteriorates. And we can prevent deterioration by being careful, but at best, it's perfect in the beginning and it will lose its vitality. It will lose its color experience, the surface will break. And so the paintings we see now, and Mondrian is a good example, they're much less vibrant than when they were just made. Some people find the older work more attractive, that the same way old jeans might look better than new jeans. But I think we've accepted with art that over time it deteriorates. My work anticipates an improvement in display technology. And so the idea is that the work becomes more vibrant and more alive over time. And that also creates a different approach to preservation, that the preservation is not about keeping the work perfect as it is, but anticipating that the work has infinite potential and has to be revisited over time. So what will happen if screens wrap around every wall of your house? And can the work fill up that potential space? Or how does it relate to architecture? Or any other changes that might happen? So I see my work as instructions and as an idea that should be explored with every new possible display technology. But other than that, it is interesting that paintings age and they start to break. And then maybe with video art, we will see resolution the same way, that low resolution will give it a sort of feeling of history and that we trust it because it's older.
Hey, Rafael. I also have a question. When you talk about change and interaction in your work, how would you define the relationship between dimensions and information?
So the way I think about information is, I talked before about letter forms and symbols, and that's not exactly how I see my work, because to me, information implies the word meaning, is connected to meaning, and I am very suspicious of the whole idea of meaning. And meaning implies that you're looking at something, but the energy of that thing is elsewhere. It's in the reading, and I'm much more interested in direct experience. So maybe I'm more of this feeling that with the work, hopefully it creates an energy inside of you that doesn't have any predetermined outcome. And if there's a predetermined outcome, maybe that's what we call meaning. So if you're driving on the highway and a sign says, take exit 14 to go to Düsseldorf, you want the number 14 to correspond. You don't want that to do something else. But with art, I hope that if there's an exit sign, that you might end up somewhere else than Düsseldorf. So that's how I see my work. It looks very relaxed over there. Too bad I can't be there.
Hi, Rafael. Mathilde talking from Museum Volkwang.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
How are you? Hi.
Nice to see you again. We could hear you perfectly
Okay.
during the whole time. I was wondering if you could explain, a few years ago you, with the project Bring Your Own Beamer, you experienced it and you are still doing it. What is the impact of this project on your own work?
Yeah, so I can explain. Bring Your Own Beamer is an exhibition format that I started in 2010. And the idea is that you ask artists to bring a projector to a space and you create a spontaneous one-night exhibition. And the whole idea started from being in Berlin at the time, and a lot of my friends were making moving images. So people were very used to projecting their work, and a lot of people owned a projector. So I thought, if everybody brings their own gear, the exhibition format becomes much more spontaneous. I always noticed new media curators being very stressed because of the cost of all the materials and making exhibitions. And I was curious if we could make an exhibition that felt more freeform, like the internet itself. I curated the first one together with Anne de Vries, an artist who's still living in Berlin. And we were surprised that people were so happy. And it's such a strange thing, because usually with exhibitions, especially group exhibitions, there's a lot of ego of who gets to show in the better corner, whose name is first on the press release, and all these kind of things. And here it was much more organic, where you could take your projector and move it around. And so I saw the whole exhibition as a living organism with lots of, and artists would respond to each other because they bring their laptop and the projector, and they would change works all the time. It's just very liquid. And what happened was immediately people said, oh, there's an exhibition place in Athens, and they have a window the next week. Maybe I'll organize one over there and maybe over there. And it spread very quickly. And I think I used to count all the BYOBs, and I had a website where I would log everything and put it in a spreadsheet. And I stopped counting after about 500 editions. So it's really happened all over the world. And the one thing I always hear from everybody is that it was a lot of fun and that it makes people happy. And I think exhibitions can do a lot of things. They can be urgent, and they can be important, and they can be vital. And BYOB, I think, is on the fun side of things. And that was just my proposal, to create. It's institutional critique, but outside of the institution. I don't know if it will ever really be read as institutional critique, because I always thought the irony of institutional critique is that you can only do it in an institution. You can't really critique it, otherwise you won't be invited. And so this is not a critique, but an alternative, but it is a comment on why are exhibitions always heavy and serious? And is that the nature of institutions, that if you have a round of meetings and a budget, at some point it just becomes serious? And that's been the exploration. And so I see it as a way to also, it's often young artists, because older artists don't really see the point of bringing a projector to an exhibition space that they're already exhibiting. So part of the amateur feeling and the thrift store, it brings young energy and young artists, and that's a conscious choice. I think it invites people who are outsiders or beginners, or people who don't have the full resume yet, and I think that's a great thing. And the other thing I really noticed was that it was a way of bringing people together who were familiar with each other's work from the internet, and then for the first time they all see each other and see each other's work, and it's a very good way to connect and to meet each other because you're already familiar with each other's work. So a big part of artists, I think artists are often introverts, and they meet each other, they're shy to talk to each other, and then you have to say, what do you do? And it's very hard to explain. But then all the work is all around, and we can just say like, oh, I saw that work. Oh, I know that work. Oh, da, da, da. And so it's this, yeah. But overall, I felt like it was a very positive thing, and I never saw it as a way of saying that institutions are bad, but I felt like it was a necessary thing for a lot of, because there's so many people who start creating online because, and I use the word creating because it's broader than art. It's music videos, animated GIFs, memes, all these things, everything combined. And these people, it's often an intimidating step to go towards exhibitions. And this is a way to dip your toes. And it's not an exhibition, it's more of an event, but it's also an exhibition. So yeah, if you go to bylbworldwide.com, that's the website, and you can get a taste of it. So hopefully that answers the question. We're doing a BYOB in Museum Folkwang on August 18th. So